This channel is what studying abroad dreams are made of. Do subscribe and hit the bell icon.
Hey guys, it's Ella with iSchoolConnect, here again to bring you some more amazing advice and content for the pursuit of higher education. So today we're going to be discussing higher education, and what I mean by that is graduate school. So in my video about getting an MBA in economics, I discussed the many benefits to getting a grad school degree. It really is a great option to help you boost your career and give you more freedom to explore what you are really interested in and passionate about, and ultimately give you a lot more knowledge and insight in your field. So graduate school sure sounds really great, but you do have to get in first. So just like in high school, we must take a standardized test, but thankfully it's not the ACT or the SAT. So the GMAT test used to be the only scores accepted for MBA programs, but in recent years, the GRE test has become an option for a lot of schools. So preparing for one test is hard enough, and you probably don't want to take both. So that's why I'm here to discuss the few differences between the two and try to figure out which one is best for you. So let's first cover the basics of the GMAT. The GMAT is made up of 4 sections, which are the Analytical Writing Assessment that consists of one 30-minute essay, the Integrated Reasoning section that contains 12 questions, the Quantitative section that has 37 questions, and lastly the Verbal section that has 41 questions. So your most important score is the composite score, which will be between 200 and 800, and it is made up of the verbal and quantitative sections. So you'll receive specific section scores, and the verbal and quantitative sections both have score ranges of 0 to 60 in 1-point increments. The score range for analytical writing is 0 to 6 in half-point increments, and the score range for the integrated reasoning section is 1 through 8 in 1-point increments. The cool thing about the GMAT is that it is taken on a computer, and so it is adaptive to you. This means it will start you off with like a question in the verbal and quantitative sections that has kind of medium difficulty, and so if you get this question right, then you would move on to a harder, more challenging question, and if you get it wrong, you would move on to an easier question, and that would just continue on for the test. The downside to this style of testing is that you are unable to go back to questions once you've answered them, which for me that would be a big downfall. However, adaptive testing usually does give a more accurate result than some other standardized testing methods, which can be really good. The GRE is unique because it is used for a variety of grad school programs, unlike the GMAT on the other hand, which is pretty much exclusively used for business schools. So the GRE only has 3 sections, which are made up by the analytical writing portion that consists of 2 essays, each of which you'll be given 30 minutes to complete, and the quantitative reasoning and analytical reasoning portions, which each have 2 20-question sections for a total of 80 multiple choice questions. The GRE will also include one 20-question research section, which won't be included as part of your score, but is nonetheless on there. So this will either be a verbal or quantitative section, but you won't know which section that question is coming from until you get there. So like the GMAT, the score range for the GRE's analytical writing section is 0 through 6 in half-point increments. Both verbal reasoning and quantitative reasoning are scored in the same way. So their score range is from 130 to 170 in 1-point increments, and the 3 section scores are generally reported separately and not combined into a single composite score. So the GRE is also typically taken on the computer, and it is a section level adaptive type of test. This means that your score on the first entire section of both the verbal reasoning and quantitative reasoning sections will affect the difficulty of the preceding questions tested in the second section for each subject. Unlike the GMAT, where each individual question determines the difficulty of the next question, on the GRE, your score on the entire section will determine the difficulty of the next section on that subject. So on the GRE, you can return to questions you've already answered, which is really nice, within that same section. So for the verbal sections, the GMAT and the GRE test similar skills, including reading comprehension, critical thinking, and grammar. However, the GRE is generally considered to have a slightly more challenging verbal section. So this might be something that you consider if you're particularly strong with the skills of the verbal section tests or not so much. The quantitative sections of the test the same mathematical concepts, but their approach to testing them is a little bit different. So the GMAT's quantitative section is broken into two types of questions: problem solving and data sufficiency. Problem solving is similar to any other standardized math problem. You've probably done a million of them already, which includes solving equations, interpreting graphs, and evaluating data. So data sufficiency problems, on the other hand, which make up about 14 to 16 of the 37 quantitative questions, are a little bit more unusual. For these problems, you will be given a question followed by two statements, and you'll have to decide if one or both or either or neither statement is sufficient enough to answer the question. So for these questions, you don't need to solve the problem necessarily that you're given. You just need to decide if you have enough information to solve it. So you would probably benefit from GMAT practice questions and practice tests to get a feel of these type of unusual questions. The integrated reasoning section also tests quantitative skills and contains 4 types of questions: graphics interpretation, two-part analysis, table analysis, and multi-source reasoning. All of these questions test your ability to interpret data and solve complex problems. On the other hand, the GRE quantitative reasoning section tests your skills in 4 areas, which are algebra, arithmetic, data analysis, and geometry. These questions can either be multiple choice, or you may have to enter a numerical value as your answer. There are also quantity comparison questions, and for these questions, you'll be given 2 quantities A and B, and then you'll be asked to determine if quantity A is larger, quantity B is larger, the 2 quantities are equal, or the relationship can't be determined. It is widely accepted that the quantitative sections of the GMAT are more difficult than those of the GRE. Again, this is definitely something to consider when you're deciding which test to take, on which one will kind of show off your strengths best. Thankfully, neither test calculus, so you really only need your high school mathematical skills, but the GMAT's questions are known for requiring a little bit of a sophisticated level of critical thinking and analysis. The GRE, on the other hand, has a relatively straightforward approach to math, and the questions you see on it will probably be pretty familiar to you, which is good. So for the analytical writing section, the biggest difference between the 2 tests is that the GMAT requires 1 essay be written and the GRE requires 2. For the GMAT, you'll be given an argument and you must evaluate its strengths and weaknesses and an essay. And you aren't really giving your own opinion on the issue, but you're instead discussing the given opinion, what its shortcomings are, and how it could be improved. You also only have 30 minutes to complete this, so time management is definitely a pretty big factor here. The GRE's 2 essays are also both 30 minutes each, one being focused around analyzing an argument, and the other centered around analyzing a task. So that first essay, analyzing an argument, is pretty similar to the GMAT's essay, no real differences. But in analyzing a task, on the other hand, you are given an argument and you'll need to explain your stance on the issue and then justify that stance with evidence. So these sections are about equal difficulty, though the GRE is double the length. Now that we have broken down the tests, which one is going to fit you best? Today, about 90% of people applying to business schools are submitting GMAT scores, but the amount of people submitting the GRE scores rises every year, and most schools accept both tests, but about 25% of business schools say they prefer the GMAT test. Schools prefer the GMAT because they feel that the quantitative reasoning section is tested better, and they also believe students who submit the GMAT score are really set and sure about going to business school. Seeing that the GRE can really be used for a wide range of schools, it may seem that someone taking the GRE is kind of keeping their options open and are really unsure about what they want to do at the end of the day. Business schools are also usually more familiar with the GMAT as it has been around longer and has been historically more widely accepted by schools. However, the majority of business schools state that they have no preference over either test, especially the Ivy Leagues. So when you are deciding which test to take, you really should first look at your top school's policies. Make sure they accept the test you want to take, and you can even take that extra step to reach out to an admissions officer to find out which tests the school may prefer or be more comfortable with. Next, you are going to want to take a practice exam of each test. Try to take them under realistic testing conditions to see which one you're more comfortable with and you really thrive with. You're also going to want to compare your scores to see if you performed significantly better on one over the other. You can use a conversion table to do this to compare them with ease. So lastly, the logistics of the test may affect your decision to take one or the other. The GRE is generally offered more often and at more locations, but you will have to do some personal research to find out where these testing centers are offered and where they are in your area. The scores are also reported a little bit differently, which may affect your view of each test. The GMAT automatically sends a full score report of every GMAT you've ever taken to the school or schools of your choice. However, on the other hand, the GRE allows you to send specific scores and also withhold any if you wish. Most schools don't care if you've taken the test 2 times or maybe 3. The GMAT costs around $250 and the GRE costs around $205. With that, the GMAT gives you 5 free score reports while the GRE gives you 4. With all this information, you should be ready to choose the test that's meant for you. Remember, the test score is only one part of your application, and it is not the be-all end-all of getting into your dream business school, so don't stress out too much. Thanks for tuning in to this video. If you want to see more from me and other iSchoolConnect partners, just subscribe to the channel and like this video. We put out a ton of really useful information and content about college and studying abroad that will definitely help you create the perfect path to your higher education. I'll see you all next time. Bye!